the issue here to discuss is very important. Inequality in China. So today I heard there a serious discussion about the trend of inequality in China. So what's the real situation now? Li Shi mentioned the situation is serious. The income inequality and also if we regard assets and some other is really huge. The inequality, the gap between the rich and the poor. But what's the trend in the last several years? Government data shows the Gini coefficient decreased a little bit. So is this real or not? This needs a serious check. I personally believe this is real. It's from a peak 0.49 decreased to the 0.47 something. So there are two forces. One is draft is larger, like a high income group. And corruption. But from another side, we see urbanization, we see social welfare building, and we see the government efforts in rural areas to build a welfare society, especially about the labor market. Now they passed the Lewis curve. More and more people believe that. So income, the wages in rural area increased very fast. We went to several places, counties, to check that the labor wage in the village is increased, even for the agriculture work. So if this is the situation, that's Li Shi mentioned, we are still in a very high level of income inequality. But the last 5 years, the efforts to narrow this is started to work. But government understand this is still very high. So they formulate a plan. It's taken 1 year long to discuss about this plan. So government just publish this. They call the opinions of deepening reform of income distribution system. So this document comes from a serious negotiation between different ministries. Originally, it has more measures, more data to show indicator, but then it becomes less and less. But it's focused on 4 areas. One is the primary distribution. It has some indicators. Say, one is minimum wages. Till 2015, the minimum wages in most areas should be 40% of average wages in the city. For example, Beijing is 4,000 now, so 40% means 1,600. Now it's about 1,200. So by 2015, it increased to 400. But this 400, the market force is also will raise it. So this is one measure, 40%. The second measure is the training, vocational training. It will be free for most rural areas and also the migrants to get this secondary high school vocational training. Third is about state company should the people should get a bigger share for their profit. This is the first measure. Second measure is about redistribution. They mentioned the tax, they mentioned the social welfare. The third part is the farmers' income. They mentioned two issues. Just cover it. One is the hukou. It's about the migrants to get the full citizenship, enjoy the same social welfare in the city. That's just one sentence, but this is the meaning. Hukou. Second is about the farmers' share, sell the land, transfer land from agriculture to non-agriculture, but they didn't say how much the share it should be. This is third. I heard that the inequality, does it contribute to the growth or not? There are some papers that it contributes because you have a group you can discriminate. So they first contribute the green in the quarter in the 1980s. Then they contribute the land, sell land at a very low price. And also they contribute their labor without any social welfare. That account 70% of the general wages, the income. So they contribute a lot. With this discrimination, if it can be forever, just like slaves in U.S., if it could be forever, it always can contribute something. You do not need to save too much because you can explore them, but it can't. So this must be the issue to solve it. We understand how much those farmers contribute. Some people estimate, it's easy to estimate, but it needs to be solved. Now, government realized it. This is the third part for the plan. And the fourth part is institution. They mentioned institution, very important, and especially about the anti-corruption and so on. So, this is the government plan. What is missing is James' work already mentioned. The earlier child development, education, especially in the early years. In this plan, they even not mentioned it. That's really surprising us. We talked for several years, and then they come out and plan. If we look at the anti-poverty plan, even in that plan, they didn't mention anything about the earlier child development. This is a different ministry's responsibility. So for NDRC, for poverty alleviation group, this is not their responsibility. This is a responsibility laid on to the education, Ministry of Public Health, and so on. So it's strange. We need to work on this. That's the reason we invite you to give a lecture again, to teach them, to understand. Yeah. CDRF working on this. We think, we read your book, and we read some others. So we think this is very important to solve the problem of inequality. It cannot solve everything, but it's a part of the solution. It's a very efficient solution. So we did several projects. One is school meal, nutrition improvement in poor area. In China, now we have 680 counties. They call it 集中连片. It's a concentrated poverty area. So 23 million of students in compulsory education period. 2007 we did an experiment and accepted by the government. Now it's government bigger project cover this 680 counties and 23 million students. They spend 16 billion RMB. This year, we did evaluation, assessment about the government project. Half of this project run good. Those counties build a kitchen, provide a hot meal, hot lunch for students. Half of those didn't do this. They buy the milk and the cookie and distribute that to the students. But in general, all students receive 3 RMB equal as the food free. They all those 23 million. That's by exam or assessment. So the result is the student. Our survey compared with the CDCD the last year. The students for the boy grows 2 centimeter and grows 1 kilogram. The same year, same age. The girls is 1 centimeter and 1 kilogram, but they are still far behind the rural average. CDC is 2010 rural average. So the children, the kids in the poor area is still 1 to 3 centimeter lower than average, rural average, and 1 to 2 kilogram compared with the rural average. So that's the issue. We still need to work on this. That's one area. We released the result welcomed by the Ministry of Education. We will continue to working on this issue with them, try to improve it. Second area is earlier child development project. We did in 2 counties. One is in Qinghai, one is in Yunnan, started 2009. And this year, in January, we CDRF write a report to leader to summarize the changes and summarize the experience. And then President Xi Jinping, Party Secretary General Xi Jinping, make a long comments on this suggestion and say this is valuable suggestions. So he gave instruction to Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Public Health to follow this suggestion, to make a plan, general plan. So in the poor area now, government will increase the expenditure. And totally they have more than 13 new program. Many ministries want to join, but put their program into this. So we want to emphasize preschool education, nutrition intervention, but they also want to set up something like buy a big truck to do the exam in the rural area. So in the one county, they spend 1 million buy a car and then can do the exam for the women. Sometimes we know this doesn't work. You have a truck, but you need a doctor. You need to pay the fuel, but the local government will not pay that. We know that. But we try to fight with them. Not easy. We try to emphasize more preschool education, to hire more volunteers to go to the village. They still argue with them how much they should spend on the salary, how much they spend equipment. This is the second part, but we're very glad that the government moved to this direction. Totally, the project will cover 40 million of children, including that compulsory education part. But from a pregnant woman till they graduate from junior high. So that's the plan. And the government budget will increase at least 25 billion additional the money for the project. They suppose in September, that's a new year, academic year, so they launch this new program. Third part is about the migrant children, migrant students. We did a social experiment in Kunming and in Beijing. We measure the differences. For those migrant kids, they have two problems. One is they cannot have expectation. They don't know where they will go because they cannot take exam in the city. They have to go back to the village, to the rural area, to take that the exam. So they don't know what is their future. That's one problem. And the second problem is their education, the quality of their education is very poor. So many of them study in the private schools. So that's we did some experiments and see the result. And we want to help government to correct that the institutional arrangement. Fourth one is our vocational training. Ministry of Education invited us to do assessment in vocational training. Government spend a lot of money, but people are not satisfied. So if any of you are interested to do this project, we are really willing to do the cooperative work with you to do the assessment. We checked with OECD, with the World Bank. There's no theoretical framework to do assessment about the vocational training. Well, how do we measure that? By salary, wages, by the job seeking, by what? Well, different way, but how to follow after 3 years, starting now and then for several years. We got some papers from U.S. President Bush did that, spend about $20,000 US per person, and then help them to get the job. The expenditure is really very high, but the ratio, the increase, the employment, that's not very high. So this is the fourth area. The fifth area we want to do is about the quality of rural education. We know Shanghai is the number one in the OECD's PISA exam. So we want to do that in the poverty area to see the differences compared with Shanghai. So if it's far behind, what's the solution? The boarding school is maybe the one of the solution. And increase the public school in the urban, accept more migrants, that's another solution. But this definitely needs to be solved. All those work related with inequality. We hope from this very good theoretical analysis that we can put it into practice, put it into action, and help government to make changes. Something in general maybe is very good, like government want to reform its physical system. Now they have a specific program for central local government for the physical transfer. Next year, government want to change it, not a specific program, but increase a more general transfer. That's a change central and local relations. But the question is, if we transfer more money to the local, will they to build a more kitchen in the boarding school? If willing to do a more preschool education, or build up more buildings, roads, that's something worried about. So increase the general transport, maybe not the cost, the investment in the human capital, but more other things that need to be think about. I very appreciate the invitation for this meeting, and I take this time to do some advertisement. From Wednesday and Thursday, we have a training program about the poverty and child development. Professor James Heckman, Mary Young will give a lecture, give a talk. So any of you if interested in this program, there's my colleague, so you can tell them we welcome you to join us. The government official who involved to formulate that plan will join, and 9 counties who did a social experiment with us will join us, and some other, including the media. So you're welcome to I saw you watch your watch several times. So I finished on time. Thank you.